So, ladies and gentlemen, as my friend said, my name is Marcin Wielec and I came from Poland. I'm specialized in criminal procedure, and today I have the honor to represent Faculty of Law and Administration of the Cardinal Stefan Wyszynski University in Warsaw. I thank you very much for invitation of my humble person, and it is honor for me. But let me repeat again these words, which I told a couple days ago on the beautiful and extremely interesting conference devoted to the young researchers, organized also by the Central European Academy. I feel in Budapest always like my home. So, for a moment, my friends, we will move into the world of dark interests and dependencies, because, as you can see on the screen, my topic speech is contemporary challenge for Polish law from the perspective of environmental offenses. For a long time, I wondered how to present this topic in detail, very briefly, because it is very wide, very complicated, and multifaceted problem. The problem of environmental offenses include many important characteristical elements to substantive law, as well as to procedural law, formal law, sociology, psychology, biology, even chemistry, or safe of state, of course, and other. That is why I decided in my speech to distinguish several very basic segments. What are these segments? So the first of all, preliminary overview, analysis, and statistical introduction on the problem of the environmental crime in Poland. One thing in this place I have to emphasize, I have to admit that my data, which I analyzed, data of crime, of course, came only to 2021 because this is not too old, but as well as this is not too fresh. I add one more thing, I can sure predict that this data in 2022, 2023 are very similar, and exist other ones obstacle because date which I need, date of crime of course, in Poland sometimes are released from public body in the big delay. And in this way my analysis of this issue is underway. Sorry for this attention and little constraint. Secondly, the presentation of modern evidence techniques in cases concerning environmental crime. Thirdly, general overview of the institutional aspect as the response of specialized legal protection bodies in the fields of environmental protection. So, environmental crime as a global phenomenon. Currently, environmental crime, in the broad sense of the word, is my opinion, is now a global phenomenon. Structurally and methodologically, it seems to me that the environmental crimes have long since acquired an international character. The destruction of the environment in each country does not only harm the inhabitants of that country, but everyone around the world. This is rare type of crime that in terms of effect touch the entire globe. If we look at individual environmental crimes in countries such as Europe, we will see that they have similar names, constructions, goals, and ways of committing them. They also have the same mechanism to strike the common good, which is undoubtedly for our natural environment. Therefore, it is important to recognition in detail with the structure of environmental crime in individual countries in order to be able to get an idea of the scale of the phenomenon, what are the common points, what are the methods of action, and finally what countermeasure to take. In this context, at the beginning, now I will present basic statistical data on environmental crime in Poland. However, I mentioned I reserve that this data comes from 2021. This is, of course, official data collected by the public body. Therefore, I invite to you of the part one of my speech. Analyzes environmental crime data. I will briefly tell you that data we have in our research, what they present and what conclusions can be drawn for them. It will be a mixture of a substantive, legal, and procedural element based on 4 indicators such as detection rate in percentage, rate of detected crimes, number of stated crimes, number of criminal proceedings initiated. So, here we go. Examples of environmental crimes in Polish criminal law system. In the penalty law system, in my opinion, everything starts with the regulation of substantive criminal law. Is there that the legislator determines what act are crimes, determines the structure of these crimes, types of these crimes, and of course names and indicates penalties. In this context, the basic legal act in Poland, as in many other countries in Europe, is the criminal code, which provides the principle of criminal liability and also defines what act are crimes. There are also indicated model of prohibited acts that from a catalog of environmental crimes in Poland in Polish legal system. This is chapter 22 of the Polish Criminal Code, containing several such crimes. Due to our time, which I have, I choose only a few for my presentation. And one of the environmental crimes that we have analyzed in our scientific and research project is a crime that in Poland is called improper waste handling. So this is provision 183 Polish Criminal Code. As we see, general rule is the violation of the regulation of waste is criminalized. The provision protects the environment in terms of the risk associated with their influence and indicatally and human life and health. Statistical data on this crime in Poland are as follows. We can on the screen. The present slide shows significant increase in crime in the field of this forbidden act, improper waste handling. On the other hand, it should be emphasized that in Poland there has been an increased detection of these crimes since 2016, which proves that law enforcement agencies attached great importance to this type of crime. Importantly, an increased number of identified crimes and initiated proceedings can be observed. Another of the so-called environmental crime is the crime of failure to care for environmental safety devices. This is the provision 186 of the Polish Penal Code. Offenses under this provision of the Polish Penal Code consist in failure to comply with the obligation to use devices protecting the environment against harmful factors. The good protected by these provisions is the proper functioning of the devices, protecting water, air, or the Earth's surface, and consequently the broadly understood environment against pollution, including radioactive contamination or ionizing radiation. The statistics on this offense are as follows, we see on the screen. The offense to failure to care of security devices remains at a similar level or over time. It can only be noted that there was a downward trend, but in the recent year, we can see a very minimal release. It seems that these behaviors are under control of environmental inspection authorities in Poland, but of course, they still need to be closely monitored. Another of the so-called environmental crimes is the crime against the natural beauty of environment and landscape. So this is provision of the 188 Polish Penal Code. It provides for the unlawful carrying of construction works or economic activities on protected land. Nature and the landscape should be treated as a protected asset, the area and the area covered by the specific form of protection. The statistics of this offense are as follows, we can on the screen. And this slide in turn shows a significant decrease in these crimes. This may be proof that legal education, maybe in the field of caring for the natural environment, brings results. The reason for this may be the fact that society is beginning to appreciate the qualities of the natural landscape. And another example of an environmental crime is the crime of environmental pollution. This time is provision 182 of Polish Criminal Code. The rule is simple: pollution of the air, water or land surface is criminalized. The main asset protected by this provision of the Criminal Code is the state of the best possible water, air, and land surface. The statistics on this offense are follows. Over the years, there has been a little increase in this case of the crime of environmental pollution. This is evidence the increased effectiveness of law enforcement agencies, which are beginning to pay more attention to this type of crime, which also translates into the statistics. Therefore, the number of initiated proceedings and detected crimes has also increased, which is reflected in the close monitoring of the subject of environmental crime by Polish authorities. And the last example of an environmental crime that we analyze in the crime of reducing is the crime of reducing the natural value of a protected area or object. This is provision 187 of the Polish Criminal Code. This provision provides for the offense of violating the integrity of natural value of a legally protected area of facility. This provision protects the nature and landscape or of places covered by special forms of protection. We see a downward trend here in terms of the crime of reducing the natural value of a protected area or object. Interestingly, the number of proceedings initiated and crime detected remains at the similar level over the years analyzed. So, in the context of this presented data, the question arises: what action have been taken in the field of counteracting and preventing environmental crime in Poland, both in legal, institutional, and research terms? Answer: I can point out that, firstly, the provision of the criminal code have been amended. It was a big amendment, which have strengthened the penalties for environmental crime, as evidenced by the decrease in some of the previously discussed environmental crimes. The sharpening of penalties has particularly affected repeat offenders. This is the large amendment of the criminal code in Poland since the 19th, and offenses in the field of environmental crimes and offenses. Secondly, the Polish Ministry of Environmental and Polish Ministry of Justice since 2015 undertook extensive social and educational campaign and programs. Thirdly, the phenomenon of environmental crime is being analyzed and is a very important issue for Polish authorities. This is evidenced by, for example, institutional reforms, in example, strengthening services, including the General Inspectorate of Environmental Protection. So, part 2, modern means of evidence. In the 21st century, the fast progress of civilization, technology means that when we talk about combating crime, about preventing its causes, we often have to refer to modern evidence techniques, including modern forensic techniques. The evidence process can be attributed to a high sensitivity to innovation process, especially now that environmental crime has become a new species of crime. The fight against environmental crime requires determination, flexibility, and without doubt the use, after all, of modern forensic techniques. It is totally different model of crime. In all these areas, it is necessary to rationally use new technologies, inter alia drones, artificial intelligence, data analysis, and we need modern laboratories. And so, case study in Poland, example in practice. For example, in Poland, drones and georadars help in combating the so-called garbage mafias. The recent action of the, for example, Provincial Inspectorate for Environmental Protection in Wrocław. Wrocław, it is one of the biggest towns in Poland, was well known. Employees of this unit and the chief of Inspectorate for Environmental Protection were able to track down and catch people who wanted to illegally dump 13 tons of waste. This was possible thanks to use for a drone patrol to places where officers suspected that the perpetrators could illegally throw garbage. Environmental protection inspectors in Poland also have at their disposal georadars, which are used to detect to detect waste burned underground, they have scanners that allow you to create underground maps thanks to the use of radio and electromagnetic waves. In the context of illegal waste, it should also be noted that Poland has included transport of garbage in the monitoring system of electronic transport supervision. It is administrative issues that I only mentioned. The system has already been used to control the transport of goods such as alcohol, fuel, or cigarettes. From 2022. Waste transport is also subject to this control. Another example of using new ways to combat environment crime is data mining technology. In general use, it can be defined a process that uses a variety of data analysis tools to detect patterns and relationships in the data that can be used to make accurate predictions. The use of data mining can therefore be considered from the point of view of criminal proceedings as an examination of the specific facts of an environmental case by means provided for by law and evidence. Of course, there are just examples, in my opinion, only with extensive use to these areas with the support of the latest technologies and cooperation of services, both national and international level will be able to face these current challenges. And dear audience, part 3, institutional aspect. Moving on the next segment of the presentation, now let me analyze the topic of environmental crime in institutional terms. In example, legal protection bodies that are to be responsible for preventing and combating environmental crime. So, institutional system for environmental crime. In Poland, the competent authority, the first line for this is the Chief Inspectorate for Environmental Protection and its regional branches. The basic tasks of the Environmental Protection Inspectorate are to control compliance with environmental law, examine the state of the environment as a part of the state environmental monitoring program and prevent major accidents. The Chief Inspectorate for Environmental Protection has typical control powers. However, of course, in order to fulfill its statutory obligations, it cooperates with authorities that have investigative and operational powers. We are talking mainly about the police, of course, the prosecutor's office, and the border guard, and of course, secret services. In recent years, the Chief Inspectorate for Environmental Protection has gained new competencies that allow it to act properly. This is confirmed earlier by indicators, the degree of detection of environmental crimes and the number of detected crimes. So, final remarks. There is no doubt that the natural environment is a treasure and common good. Therefore, there is no choice here. We have to take care of them. We need to take extensive action at many levels to combat environmental crime. In my opinion, there are numerous characteristic features phenomenon of environmental crimes. In the context of environmental crime, attention should be paid that a special kind of victimization. Because the consequences of a crime are often not visible at the time of its commissions, but may appear in a few years and affect subsequent generations. Criminals do not pay attention to the fact that the perpetrators of environmental crime is also his victim. In example, the aggrieved, they do not realize that the consequences of their act in the future will also affect them. The second element of environmental crime is probably the difficulty in conducting evidence proceedings in relation to this type of crime, but it is a huge problem and it is a huge topic. We haven't the time. This is because this kind of crime is very complicated in its nature. It is about the entire evidence proceeding, starting from the idea of choosing and using specific evidence useful for confirmation of the commissions of a prohibited act by effective and procedural means, the proper conduct of this evidence until the introduction of the criminal trial and their correct interpretation. Another dimension of this issue is the criminalization of prohibited acts in the area of the natural environment. It is also necessary to lean over another characteristic element, in example, the issue of dark number of crimes in the field of crime environmental, which are a special category. It is necessary to point out here to allow sense of victimization again, when the potential victims do not feel directly the consequences of the crime and do not feel obliged to react, in example, submit notification of the possibility of committing a crime, or do not have awareness of the long-term consequences of these crimes. And to conclude my speech, I would like to draw attention to a few more conclusions. The first, legal protection authorities must have them at their disposal in order to be one step ahead of a crime, to really counteract the causes of environmental crime. Second, we need to adopt our legislation both materially and formally, with successful, of course. Third, penalties for environmental crimes must be served and realistic, but above all, reasonable. For formal legislation, on the other hand, must ensure the authorities can act to detect, prosecute offenders, and enforce legal accountability. And 5, institutional action is, of course, needed. With this last extent, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you for your attention.